This is Block 9, the Liberal Establishment, Section 5, the Cold War Beyond Vietnam, with the section, the split in NATO. The split in NATO took place over 2 years. Their first section in 1963 when the American president was Kennedy, and the second section in 1966 when it was Johnson. And the split in NATO was kind of started by this guy. This is the president of France. This is Charles de Gaulle. He is the great World War II French hero. He was the leader of the non-communist resistance in France when it was occupied by the Germans. He had been the one that personally had been allowed to liberate Paris. In 1950, he had the French Constitution rewritten to kind of more along the lines of what he thought the French Constitution ought to be, and then he was elected president of France in 1950. He was a constant thorn in the side of Kennedy, a constant thorn in the side of Johnson, a constant thorn in the side of the British. He is a French leader whose goal is the glorification of France and the independence of France. In 1963, we talked earlier about the European Common Market, all of those countries that agreed not to have any tariffs or other barriers between trade. In 1963, Great Britain wanted to join the European market. And they were all prepared to join the European market. And de Gaulle, as president of France, vetoed it. He said, here's the problem. Britain and the United States are so close that to invite Britain into the European common market in reality is having the United States making decisions in Europe. That the United States is powerful enough, it does not need this in the European common market that they would get by British membership in the European common market. So de Gaulle vetoed Great Britain joining the common market. Then in 1966, de Gaulle goes and says, French troops are pulling out of the combined command structure of NATO. That, remember, NATO is the alliance that is defending Western Europe against Soviet aggression. De Gaulle says no French soldier is going to take orders from anybody but a French general responsible to the French president, being him. And so he pulled France out of NATO's combined decision-making. France was still a NATO member, but they did not fight in combination or train in combination with the rest of the NATO allies, which proved to be a big thorn again in the side of the British and the Americans. And then in 1966, he said all American troops have to leave France. That NATO troops, including many, many thousands of American troops, were stationed in France, defending France against the Soviet Union. De Gaulle ordered them out. Eisenhower then had a great line, one of the greatest lines really ever delivered to French people. Johnson, President Johnson. President Johnson ordered his Secretary of State, Dean Rusk, to ask de Gaulle. De Gaulle says, get your soldiers out of France, no American troops in France. And then Dean Rusk asked him, does that include the 60,000 American troops in the cemeteries? Implying, of course, all of the Americans that have given their lives, both in World War I and in World War II, to save France. De Gaulle, according to Dean Rusk, got up and left the table without answering the question. So there's cracks in the European alliance system caused by the French. De Gaulle goes and he has France develop its own nuclear force. So France does not want to be too closely tied to the United States, is kind of what de Gaulle is getting at. He wants France to be as important and glorious and as powerful as it always had been, and he does not want the French to be what he kind of called America's poodle, America's lapdog. Just doing the bidding of the President of the United States. That France would take care of France, thank you very much, said de Gaulle, and he prevented Britain from joining the common market, and he took France out of NATO's command structure.